Please tell me you guys remember this. I finally made my dream helmet. What's going on, everybody? I'm Dylan. I run Quest for Nostalgia, where I teach how I do all of my 3D printed movie props and things like that. And in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how I made the Blue Beetleborg. If you can't tell, I am so stoked to finish this helmet. This is a dream come true for me. This is a project I want to do from the very, very beginning. And I just can't even believe that I'm holding a Blue Beetleborg helmet right now. It's a series that I absolutely loved as a kid. Anything to do with comic books, and then even closely related to Power Rangers, I could easily see why I like this. Also, the kind of haunted mansion, almost Goosebumps. You guys have seen my Goosebumps collection down there. You know, anything like that. It's so easy to see why I love Beetleborgs. And I hope you guys remember them. Let me know in the comments down below if you watched Beetleborgs or if you only watched Power Rangers and other stuff like that. But if you were a Fox Kids kid, yeah, hopefully you guys remember Beetleborgs. This project is super exciting, and I'm so happy that I got this thing done. But I just want to thank you guys as always. You guys are awesome. Thank you for subscribing and liking and doing all the YouTube things. It really, really helps me grow, and we've been booming over here. And I'm very excited to share this project with you and just kind of the celebration of how everything is going with this helmet, with the channel and everything. I love you guys. Thank you for all the support. Goodness, Jeff, thank you for this lens. This lens looks absolutely amazing. I'm loving the way that the content is coming out. All the support, Dragon King over on Twitch for supporting the build for the Iron Man, Q for all the rolls of plastic and things like that. Everybody, you guys are just absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for all of the support. And if you guys want to support the channel, you guys can just do the YouTube things, or you guys can support on things like Patreon or the Amazon wishlist or anything like that. If you guys want kits and you want me to print you out one of these, I definitely can do that for you as well. Reach out to me on Instagram or join the Discord. I'll have the links down below in the description. And yeah, you can reach out and message me, and we can talk about getting a helmet kit shipped out to you if you want to follow along with the build video, even if you don't have a 3D printer or the files. But let's get into this build. So this is what it looks like when it was printed. I printed it without the horn top here. I was struggling to figure out how I wanted to print the horn, so I sliced off the very top of it. I sliced it through here to have a little bit of a easier time printing this. I split it behind the ear on mine to have a nice clean seam there and not have to worry about cutting through the ear cup or anything like that. This helmet, I didn't use any power sanding because there's so many fine lines and fine details. I wanted to keep all of the detail in this helmet. So I actually just used the sponge and wrapped 80 grit around that. So I went over all of the helmet, the back first, then going through the front of the helmet, just using that sponge. Once I was done with the 80 grit with that, I actually used a smaller sponge and little strips to get into the nice tight places that I had to get into that I couldn't reach with the big sponge. So ripping off little shreds and going into those nooks and crannies to really get in there nice. After the 80 grit was done, then I went through and I carved out the lines again using files that I had gotten from Harbor Freight. So a little small file set to just go through and make sure I scrape back through these lines and try to get some of the layer lines off of those as well. The next step in the process was I used the U-Pull spot putty. So it's something that's different. It's coming around. Third Dimension Bills actually had told me about this product. And so I went and got some of that and I cut it down with acetone. So what I did was I mixed it 1-to-1, that glazing putty and acetone, and made it into kind of like a milkshake and painted that on with some brushes that I got from the dollar store. I like this method much better than UV resin. UV resin takes so long to cure it. You have to worry about the toxicity of the uncured resin even after you think you've cured it. And then it was better than the kind of Bondo glazing putty as well. It's a little bit harder. It feels like it's a tougher surface on there. It sands really, really well. So I really enjoyed this product. After the putty layer was all done and placed onto the helmet, then I used 120 grit, but you guys don't need to see me do exactly the same thing. It was the same as 80 grit. I used the sponges, first the big sponge, then the little sponge, and then tiny strips to get in there, and then I carved the lines out again. After 120, I wanted to glue the horn on before I laid down the first layer of filler primer. I didn't want to have there be any filler primer between the spot that I wanted to sand and then glue together. So I glued it on there using super glue, and then I ended up actually taking my hot glue gun and dripping it down the horn there to just give it a little bit more, just to try to fill in any bit of gap there and really make it a solid connection between these two things to make this nice and strong. Like I said, after the horn was glued on there, it was the first round of filler primer. I've heard that Rust-Oleum filler primer lays on a little bit thicker. It actually fills in a little bit easier than the Duplicolor. Duplicolor is really nice, and you'll see I'm going to use that later on in the project. But I started with this kind of Rust-Oleum filler primer for this first layer. After the Rust-Oleum, I end up going through and wet sanding 220. Make sure you put on some Gundam and get to work on this thing. Once the 220 round was done, then I actually did another layer filler because I wanted to make sure I got all of those layer lines out there. I didn't want to, fill in all these lines. So I did very light coats of the filler primer in general, but I definitely still didn't want to lose the detail in all these fantastic lines of this helmet. And this time, like I said, I used the Duplicolor filler primer. I laid it down a thin coat of there and it filled in really, really nicely. After the second layer of filler primer, I then did 320 grit wet sanded again, and it was time to start getting into the real paint process of this. The first layer of paint that I did was a flat black, so I used a flat black Rust-Oleum primer, and this time you do not want to be heavy with it at all. Light coats. If you have to do 2 coats, do it. Go through, try not, if you miss a spot, don't go back and try to get it. Just wait for the next round. Wait 10 minutes and then come back and try to get that spot. Then you do not want to get a run at this stage because we don't want to have to sand again. After the flat black was cured, then I went through and I masked off the areas that I wanted to keep black, which were the deep part of the eyes here, the ear pucks, and then also these little tops of the antenna. With these all masked off, then I used Rust-Oleum Silver Metallic. I really like that. That's what I use for all of the Power Ranger mouths, and that's what I use for the silver parts of the front of this helmet and the bottom of the antennas here. And I end up coating the entire helmet with it, so that way this metallic blue laid down over top of a nice silver. With the silver, be very light as well. Again, if you have to do 2 coats, do 2 coats. If you see you missed a spot, try not to go back and just spritz it real quick. Please just wait 10 minutes and then go through for a second round and just start there if you feel like you had missed a spot. After the whole helmet was silver, I masked off this front area, and then it was time to spray Rust-Oleum Metallic Blue. I had used that for the small part of my Keyblade a year and a half ago when I first made that thing, and when I did that, I knew this was going to be the color that I was going to use for my Beetleborg. So yes, it was just the Metallic Blue for Rust-Oleum, and it comes out so nice. It's very sparkly, but so good. Now to touch up some of the spots. So like say you had any issues with the taping or anything like that where there was black or silver, I use Vallejo paints for this. Their Vallejo silver matches really well with the silver of the Rust-Oleum, and then a flat black worked well with the flat black areas already. So even though I didn't tape the antennas perfectly, I was able to go through and then paint the areas that I had missed or just kind of let be there and got the general colors blocked in. And then it was time for these details, the earpieces, the screws, the little stuff like that. I didn't mask those off. If you don't feel comfortable hand painting them, you can do it by masking if you like that. But I knew that I was going to be able to hand paint this. I've painted miniatures for a very long time. So I decided to hand paint these with that silver Vallejo paint after the fact. And it came out really, really nice. With the details all painted, it was time for Duplicolor 1K clear coat. That stuff is getting really expensive, about $20 a can, but it really works well over top of metallics to keep that metallic look to it, as opposed to doing something like a Rust-Oleum clear. But I've heard that U-Pull's gloss clear is also really, really good. I haven't used it yet, but supposedly it's also fantastic on whites that usually get yellowed over time and can be yellowed by that Duplicolor 1K clear. So maybe you guys want to try the U-Pull. It's over at O'Reilly's Auto Parts. I just released a video about how to do my visors and things like that. So I did red window tint for the eyes. It's hard to see when there's nothing behind it because it kind of looks black here, but in the right light and when you can see it through a light, it's red, and you guys can see that here in the video. Usually I do buckles for my helmets for the Power Rangers, but these have magnets instead. So what I did was I actually ended up making my own custom magnet blocks. I took a piece of the Deadpool helmet from DO3D, and I actually went into Mesh Mixer and cut out the little 3mm magnet slot, and then I turned that into a cube to make my own custom magnet blocks to add to the helmet. So I just super glued those in to get a nice connection there. And then I just had to put the elastic hinge on the top to make sure that this thing had a nice hinge to stay together. That's just hot glued in there. And there we have it. I mean, it came out beautifully. It's a dream come true. I seriously knew I was going to make this right when I got into 3D printing. Beetleborgs were huge to me when I was a kid, and I honestly just cannot believe that I have this helmet in my house. This is such a crazy prop to have. It's so wild what we can create in our homes these days. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, thank you guys so much for all the support, the likes, the comments, subscribing, everything like that. You guys have really made this channel take off. We've had such good momentum. It's amazing. All of the support, the things like the Amazon wishlist and Patreon. You guys just watching to the end of the video means so much to me. You guys are the backbone of the channel. I say it every time, but watch time is so huge. So thank you for watching my videos and doing that. Thank you for being a part of this community. And I really hope that you guys like the information that I'm bringing you. I'm trying to help you guys out and get rid of any hidden secrets and confusion that you guys may have about this hobby. I love you guys so, so much. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. You guys mean the world to me. I really appreciate you, and I will see you guys in the next one. I love you guys. Peace.